Right now, let's find out what on earth's going to be going on in the budget. 4 weeks away, front pages today suggesting we're going to see a 2p rise in our income tax. Justin Urquhart-Stewart, an economist and chairman of the Regionally Investment Platform, and joins us now. Morning to you, Justin.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. Well, more good news, eh? How much should we trust reports ahead of the weeks ahead of budgets? Because it used to be, 20 years ago, nothing would ever come out. Now there's a lot of what's called kite flying by the Treasury to sort of see just the feeling, how do people feel about certain taxes, but also often to set the ground and make us fear the worst. And then when there's only, for instance, a 1p rise in income tax, we all go, phew, it wasn't as bad as we thought it was. So how much should we trust these reports?
Yeah, don't trust any of them at all.
They are them.
That's so straightforward. But as you were saying with Philip earlier, and it's good to see him, as sound common sense as ever. Thank you. But actually, they are kite flying. And what they're going to be doing, if they've got any sense, is actually coming up with really rather some frightening kites. Because if you can actually come out to people who are terrified, so they actually come out with bad news, and it's not as bad as you thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Work on the assumption it is going to be as bad as you thought it was going to be. So what you're likely to see, I wouldn't be at all surprised if it's actually 2p, because what you doesn't want to be doing is coming back every single year saying, you know, that black hole, it's just filled up.
Well, that was the promise from last year. It was going to be tough, but they'd found this £22 billion black hole, and then from now on it'd be fine. And it looks like this is going to be worse than last year.
Yeah, it's getting worse. And of course, the Office of
Budget Responsibility.
They've been, of course, have been changing their story as well. And the Treasury, we're told, are absolutely furious with them because actually the figures going back some years are therefore probably wrong. The other thing she should be doing now is actually kite flying some of the more positive elements. For instance, we know there is growth in parts of the British economy, particularly smaller companies, tech companies, those areas, and they can put they don't put government money into this. They can put guarantees up, enterprise investment schemes, those things. You only have to pay for them when things go wrong. Yeah. And so actually have a positive side. But no, what we're seeing is a whole lot of frightening stories coming out, and it's a very good chance that actually some of them may well come true. Yeah. A balance between national insurance and also maybe cutting that by 2%, and then also increasing income tax. That's a reasonable balance, and we'll still give them a positive answer.
Well, that's it. There's been a lot of talk about simplifying things, and again, a lot of people do think when they pay, I paid my stamp, I paid my national insurance all these years, when actually, it doesn't go into a different, it's not sitting there in a little bag in the corner of the Treasury. Like, there you are, that's Justin's money that he's paid in, that'll cover his pension. Rubbish. It's going on day-to-day expenditure on everything, asylum seekers, NHS, roads, you name it. But national insurance doesn't apply to as many things as income tax. So there is an argument for the Treasury. There's talk about, isn't there, cutting national insurance by 2 pence in the pound, but raising income tax by the same amount. So the average worker probably won't notice much difference, but there will be other people who will be more affected by that. Tell us who.
Oh, those filthy swine, the people who have actually retired. They're very tiresome. You really shouldn't be having many of them. And find themselves paying much more tax. Fun enough, you sort of plan for your retirement and all those plans go out the window because the rules have changed. Yeah. Well, I'm afraid you just have to live with that. We know what it's like dealing with these governments. We're living beyond our means. And you're quite right with regards to taxation. That awful word of hypothecation. The Treasury hate actually putting money on one side to say that is for the NHS or that's particular, because they know full well it's going to actually not work out correctly. Yeah. So they like to keep a big open puddle there, and then they can do with what they wish.
But isn't the thing, though? Organisations like the Institute of Fiscal Studies and others, they've been saying for quite some time that all this sort of rinky-dink, a mansion tax here, a tax on this, non-doms, that actually, A, it doesn't bring in that much money. B, it actually often doesn't bring in any money at all because, again, the taxing of the wealthy over there, very popular with left-wing voters and backbench MPs and the Labour Party. But actually, as we know, those people are very mobile and they leave, and then you get less money overall, and things like that. But the reality is that if we want the sort of services that people have on mainland Europe in many countries, you have to pay the same sort of taxes, and you're not going to be able to make that sort of money unless you're kind of taxing everyone.
Well, what you've got to do, yes, broaden it out. What you remember, the key line here, taxation does not create wealth. Wealth will allow you to have taxation. Get that the right way around. Now go to those areas where we know we're good at, smaller companies starting up and being able to grow, particularly in technology. We've got a lot of those. Some will get snapped up by the Americans. Our funding, our market funding from the stock exchange and things like that is absolutely useless at the moment, but that's slightly beside the point. Other point to remember as well. Remember, actually, 1% of income taxpayers, the top 1%, actually give us 28% of the total take of income tax. And remember, there are only three major taxes: national insurance, VAT, income tax. Even corporation tax is relatively small, and the rest of them are glorified sin taxes and don't make any real difference at all. Keep it really, really simple, and actually simplified the taxation system so most people understand it. And that way, you'll find less people actually trying to avoid it.
And it'd be harder to avoid it.
Yeah, well, exactly, because you make it clear and simple. There's a Tory's tax guide. There's that book that the accountants take to bed for some excitement. You look at that, that's doubled in pages over the past decade. We've made it far too complicated. So we actually don't strip a lot of that out and focus on the areas where actually short-term creation can help. Back to that stamp duty, well, that's going to be a key one.
Absolutely. I don't think any government's going to go, any party is going to be able to go into the next election and get elected who isn't promising to abolish stamp duty. Justin Urquhart-Stewart, Economist, Chairman of the Regional Investment Platform, thank you so much.